The Galactic Council chamber was quiet, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, as if the air itself knows something is wrong. Dozens of alien leaders sat in their curved seats, their eyes fixed on the massive star map floating above the center table. The human sectors were glowing faintly red. No one spoke at first. Then a thin, insect-like counselor broke the stillness. It has been 12 years since they replied to any message. It's 12 years of nothing. Now their fleets are moving. Words sent ripples through the chamber. Some tried to keep calm, others whispered among themselves. In the far corner, the tall reptilian warlord tapped his claws on the metal desk. Perhaps they are simply relocating, he said, but even he didn't sound convinced. No one had ever seen humans relocate hundreds of warships without a reason. The humans had always been different, too quiet, too careful. Now that quiet had broken, far from the Council's shining city. In the cold of deep space, a small scout vessel drifted toward the edge of human territory. Its pilot, a young alien named Kreth, was nervous. His ship was alone. The Council had ordered him to investigate the sudden fleet movement. He'd been told the humans would ignore him, as they always did. But his instincts screamed that something else was waiting out here. He sent out a hail. "This is Scout Vessel Talon 3, requesting communication with any human station or patrol." His voice echoed in the empty cockpit. Only static came. Back. He adjusted the comms and tried again. Clan 3 to Human Sector Control. "We are here under orders of the Galactic Council." More static. Kreth frowned. The nearest outpost was only a few thousand kilometers away, hanging silently, in orbit around a pale blue moon. Its lights were off. No ships moved. It looked abandoned. His fingers moved nervously over the control panel. "Maybe their systems are down," he muttered to himself. But even as he said it, he didn't believe it. He sent out a scan pulse. The ship's sensors lighting up. The outpost showed no life signs, no power, nothing. And then the stars shifted. Kreth blinked, confused. The patterns of light outside his window seemed to twist and shimmer like heat haze. His sensor screen flickered, then flooded with red warnings. Dozens of massive shapes began to appear on the display. No, hundreds. They had been there the whole time, hidden. The largest ship moved first, its black hull absorbing what little starlight there was. Human warships, each one silent. Each one aimed directly at his tiny scout vessel. Kreth's throat went dry. He opened his comm channel in panic. "Talon. 3-2 Council Command, human fleet sighted." I repeat, human fleet sighted. His voice cracked. They're all here. All of them." He tried to send coordinates, but the console went black. The screens, the lights, the engines, everything shut down in a single heartbeat. Outside, the warships held position. No weapons fired, no messages came. It was as if they were waiting. Kreth's hands shook as he tried to restart the systems. For a moment, the ship flickered back to life. He hit the emergency transmit button, as the rest of his words were swallowed by a blinding flash of white. The last thing he saw was the reflection of his own face in the glass, lit by the fire of something too fast to understand. Back in the council chamber, a sharp alarm broke through the tense air. A hologram blinked to life, static-filled, distorted. The image of Kreth's panicked face appeared for just 2 seconds. The words "human fleet" barely audible before the transmission cut to black. The insect-like counselor lowered her head. "They have begun." The reptilian warlord stood, his claws curling tight. "We should open negotiations at once," he growled. But the others shook their heads. The humans had ignored 12 years of offers, demands, and threats. Now they were not answering at all. Far away, in the black gulf between stars, the human fleet moved without hurry. No broadcasts, no warnings. Our formation was precise, almost surgical. They passed abandoned stations, derelict trade ships, and silent colonies. In their path, nothing stirred. The warships kept their running lights off, their hulls blending with the void. They looked less like a fleet and more like the shadow of something enormous in the control room of the lead human dreadnought. The captain stood with his hands behind, his back eyes fixed on a slowly turning holographic map. He didn't smile, he didn't speak, but his presence filled the room. Every officer moved with quiet efficiency, their voices low. They knew the plan. They had been preparing for it since the day the council made its last demand. The captain's gaze shifted to the edge of the display, where the first council border world glowed faintly. His voice was calm when he finally spoke. Maintain course. Do not answer hails. They will understand soon enough. Back in the council's capital, fear spread through the streets. Civilians had heard whispers for years, stories of human war machines that could vanish in space, of weapons that struck without warning. Many had dismissed them as myths. But now, the myths had a fleet, and that fleet was moving in a dim corner of the council archives. An old historian scrolled through records that most citizens had never seen. He found the reports from decades ago when the council had first restricted human expansion. Officially, it had been for balance and peace. Unofficially, it was because the other species had feared what humans might become if left unchecked. The historian's hands trembled as he read the final line of a classified file. If provoked beyond a certain point, humanity will not negotiate. They will act. On the far side of the galaxy, the silent human fleet adjusted its formation. The stars ahead seemed to dim as their black holes swallowed the light. Somewhere deep inside the lead dreadnought, a countdown began, quiet, unseen, and unstoppable. The silence had ended. The message from the scout ship never returned. In the council's main hall, that absence was louder than any alarm. A dozen species spoke over one another, voices rising in panic. A translation AI struggled to keep up, throwing fractured sentences into the air. No survivors. Fleet size unknown. Human sector locked down. The insect-like counselor, the one who had first warned them, tapped her claw against the table. "We must send envoys," she said, her voice sharp but steady. "They are moving. It is for a reason. We can still turn this away from war." "War," a furred ambassador barked. "They have already declared it, only without words." Arguments flared. Some demanded immediate military mobilization. Others pleaded for diplomacy. In the end, the decision was made. Envoys would be sent to Earth itself. The council still believed that if they could speak face to face, they could cool this fire before it burned out of control. The envoy ship was sleek, painted in the council's colors of deep gold and silver, a symbol of peace. It cut through space towards Sol, broadcasting friendly messages on every frequency. But as it entered the edge of human space, the crew noticed something strange. There were no patrols, no traffic, no broadcasts from civilian ships. Space was empty. The envoy captain, a tall, crystalline being named Varus, shifted in his seat. "Too quiet," he murmured. They passed the orbits of outlying colonies, but the colonies were dark. Stations floated in silence, their docking bays sealed. Through the viewports, the alien crew could see cities on the planets below, but they were lifeless. Streets were empty, lights off, no movement at all. One of the envoys, a soft-voiced aquatic diplomat, whispered, "It's as if," they simply walked away. At last, the blue and white sphere of Earth came into view. It shone in the dark, beautiful as ever. The envoy ship approached slowly, broadcasting again. "This is a diplomatic mission of the Galactic Council. We come to speak with the leaders of humanity. We come in peace." For a moment, there was nothing. Then every screen on the envoy ship flickered to life. A face appeared, not human, not alive. In AI, its features smooth and cold, its eyes glowing faint blue. It spoke in a voice calm enough to make the crew's skin crawl. "You had your chance," said the diplomats exchanged glances. We wish to understand your fleets. Movements? We can still." The AI's tone never changed. "The silence was your warning. You mistook it for weakness. That was your final mistake." Then the screens went black. The envoy ship's systems flickered as if something had brushed against them, a presence unseen but vast. Moments later, the navigation console lit up with a single symbol, a countdown. No explanation, no units of time, just numbers dropping. Is it hours? Days? Seconds? One envoy asked, panic rising in his voice. I don't know, Varys said quietly, staring at the falling numbers. But I think it's for all of us. They turned the ship back toward Council space at full speed. But deep in their minds, they knew they were already too late. Back in the Council capital, the news of the encounter spread like wildfire. Citizens demanded answers. Military leaders ordered fleets to border systems. The streets were filled with rumors, the most popular being that the humans had built a weapon no one could see in a hidden meeting room beneath the council chamber. The highest-ranking officials gathered. The insect-like counselor stood near the center, staring at the report from the envoys. A countdown, she said, her voice low, and they will not speak to us again. An old, scarred admiral leaned forward. Then we prepare for the worst. The counselor shook her head. You do not understand. They have already prepared. We are the ones behind. In the shadows of space, far beyond the council's reach, the human fleet moved with precision. At their core was the command ship, an enormous dreadnought bristling with weapons no one outside humanity had ever seen. On its bridge, the captain reviewed the same countdown that now appeared on the envoy ship. His officers moved without speaking. They didn't need orders for what came next. The captain touched the console. A wave of encrypted signals spread through the fleet. No one outside the ships could detect them. The orders were simple. Hold position until 0, then begin. In the days, or perhaps hours to come, the galaxy would learn that the silence of humanity had never been peace. And patience, once broken, could burn brighter than any star. The border between human space and council territory had never been so still. Normally, dozens of trade ships and patrol craft crossed it each day, their engines leaving faint trails. In the black, now nothing moved. The council decided to send spies, not official envoys this time, but shadow agents, experts at slipping into forbidden places. Their mission was simple: find out what the humans were building and how far. Their plans had gone. One of these agents, a lean, four-armed reptilian named Threx, traveled in a disguised freighter. The ship's hull was painted to look like a civilian cargo hauler, but inside, it was filled with surveillance drones and scanning equipment. Threx had infiltrated human space once before, years ago, when stations were busy and colonies were alive. This time felt different from the first moment. He passed through the orbit of an abandoned mining world. The machinery below had been left mid-operation, huge drills still embedded in the ground. No bodies, no signs of battle, just a feeling that everyone had left in a hurry. This is wrong, Threx muttered, adjusting his scanners. No life, no defense grid, it's too easy. Hours later, his freighter approached a cluster of asteroids. His scanners lit up with faint signals like whispers in the dark. The shapes didn't match any known human ship class, he released. A drone, to get a closer look. The small machine drifted silently into the asteroid field. For long minutes, nothing moved. Then, without warning, the shadows inside the rocks began to shift. Massive structures came into view, not ships exactly, but something worse. Gigantic weapon platforms carved directly into the stone. Railguns the size of towers, silos buried deep inside the rock, hidden from any outside scan. The entire asteroid belt had been turned into an invisible fortress before Threx could react. His drone's feed turned black. No explosion, no warning, just gone. His sensors showed nothing in the space where it had been. He cursed under his breath, recalling every rumor he had heard about human stealth technology. The council had long suspected the humans were working on ships that could completely vanish. From scans, no one had proven it until now. Threx decided to leave before whatever had taken his drone noticed him. But as he turned his ship, every warning light in the cockpit flared red. He froze. On his radar, there was nothing, but outside his viewport, a shadow darker than the surrounding void was moving toward him. Slowly, deliberately, the outline. It was faint, but there was no mistaking it. A human warship, built for hunting. Threx didn't wait to see what it would do. He slammed the engines to maximum and shot out of the asteroid field. The shadow didn't follow. It didn't have to. The message was clear. You saw too much. Now leave. When Threx returned to Council space, the Intelligence Committee listened to his report with pale faces. If what you saw is real, one of them said, then the humans have fortified their border beyond anything we imagined. Threx nodded grimly. Not just fortified. They've prepared for a war they expect to win before it even starts. At the same time, other agents were making similar discoveries. One found a planet-sized shipyard operating without visible workers, entirely automated. Another reported strange energy readings from a dead moon, strong enough to power a fleet, 10 times larger than the Council's. But none of these agents could prove their findings. Their recordings always came back corrupted. Their drones vanished. Their ships tracked without being locked on. It was as if the humans allowed them to see just enough to be afraid, and no more. Word of these findings spread quickly through the Council's inner circles. Admirals began drawing up emergency defense plans. Politicians argued over whether to strike first or wait. But deep down, they all felt the same thing. They were already too late, in the dark reaches of human space. The fleet continued its silent movement. Ships rendezvoused in precise formations, their positions shifting like pieces on an invisible board. Somewhere far from any planet, the captain of the dreadnought received a final encrypted packet. He studied it for a long moment, then closed the display. Begin the shadow phase. He ordered across the fleet, small, nearly invisible drones launched into the void. They would cross into Council space unseen, mapping targets, watching movements, and waiting for the order that would turn quiet observation into destruction. The humans were not rushing. They'd been patient for 12 years. They could be patient a little longer. But when the countdown reached 0, there would be no warning. No speeches, no chance to beg for peace. The silence was not emptiness. It was the sound of the trap closing. The Council-bordered world of Variant 6 woke to the sound of alarms. The sky was still dark with the last traces of night, but every military siren on the planet was howling. Soldiers rushed to bunkers. Defense ships scrambled from orbital docks. No one knew exactly what was happening, only that the sensors had detected something. On the bridge of the Planetary Defense Station, Commander Relk stood over the main display. The radar showed no ships, no missiles, nothing at all. Yet the alerts kept flashing red. Check the system, he barked to his crew. Find the glitch. But there was no glitch. Without warning, one of the planet's largest military bases exploded in a blinding column of fire. The shockwave rattled buildings for kilometers. Before anyone could even process the blast, a second base on the opposite side of the planet vanished the same way. What's hitting us? Relk demanded. The answer came from his deputy, her voice trembling. Sir, there's nothing on sensors. Nothing at all. What? The panic spread. Orbital cameras tried to focus on the blast sites, but the feeds were distorted, like static over an old signal. In some frames, shapes flickered, small, dark, fast-moving. They were gone the moment they appeared. High above the planet, the defense ships formed a wall, weapons ready. But one by one, they started to fail. Not explode, just die. Power cut. Lights out, drifting useless. The crews inside hammered at controls that no longer answered them in the control room. Relk stared at the silent radar, knowing something was out there. His deputy whispered, Sir, they're invisible. The attacks came faster now. Precision strikes on fuel depots, communication hubs, and orbital defense turrets. Every hit was perfect, as if the attackers had studied every weakness in advance. Finally, short-range drone managed to capture a clear image for less than a second. A small, sleek machine, no bigger than a fighter craft, slipping through the air like a shadow. No heat signature. No engine flare. Pure silence until it struck, and then only fire. The footage reached the Council capital within hours. By the time it was shown to the chamber, Varian 6's military infrastructure was already gone. The planet's civilian population had been left untouched. But the message was brutal. We can destroy your strength without touching your people. In the council meeting, voices rose in fear and anger. One ambassador shouted, "They are cowards, hiding behind stealth." Another replied, "Cowards? They walked into one of our most defended worlds and erased its weapons in less than a day. That's not cowardice. That's dominance." The insect-like counselor who had warned them earlier spoke again, her voice sharper than ever. "They could have taken the planet? They chose not to. Do you see? This is not conquest. This is warning." Meanwhile, in deep space, the human fleet moved on. The drones returned to their carriers, each one docking with perfect precision. No celebration. No speeches, just quiet efficiency. On the Dreadnought's bridge, the captain reviewed the operation logs. Every target had been destroyed with 0 human losses. The countdown on his console continued to drop. Phase 1 was complete. A junior officer approached. "Sir, the council will respond now. They'll send fleets to intercept us." The captain looked out at the starfield, his expression unreadable. "Good. Let them come. They'll spend their strength chasing ghosts." Back on Varan 6, the planet's skies were empty again. The fires still burned on the ground, but there were no signs of the attackers. Civilians gathered in the streets, staring upward, afraid the next wave would come for them, but it never did. The humans had already left. The council military called it a tactical nightmare. Political leaders called it a crisis. The people called it something else entirely, a shadow war. And somewhere, far beyond their reach, the humans were already choosing the next target. The gas giant Caltrix was a swirling storm of red and gold, its vast rings glittering in the darkness. For centuries, it had been nothing more than a mining hub for rare elements. Now, it was a fortress. The Council had gathered its strongest fleet here, more than 300 warships, supported by orbital weapon platforms and fighter wings. Admirals called it the net. If the humans came through this sector, they would be trapped and crushed. In the flagship's command room, Admiral Serac stood before a giant tactical display. The ships were arranged in a layered formation, ready to close in from all sides. "It will not escape Caltrix," he said with confidence. "Not this time." For weeks, reports had suggested the human fleet was heading this way. Scouts swore they had traced the path. The Council believed that humans were preparing to launch a full-scale assault here, hoping to cripple the gas giant's mining operations. Serac wanted them to try. Days passed, the fleet waited. Sensors scanned every corner of the system. At first, the tension kept everyone sharp. But as time dragged on with no sign of the enemy, the crews began to relax. Then, without warning, the alarms screamed. A station on the far side of the rings sent a frantic transmission, explosions tearing through its docking bays. Seconds later, a fuel storage facility near one of Caltrix's moons went up in fire. Serac snapped orders. "Bring the fleet around. Close the net." The ships moved quickly, engines flaring as they shifted into attack formation. But the radar showed nothing. The attacks came in bursts. Here, then there, always from a different direction. It's always hitting something vital. Within an hour, 3 more fuel depots were destroyed. Munitions transport exploded in a chain reaction, sending debris into the path of nearby cruisers. The Council fleet still hadn't seen a single human warship. Finally, the sensor officer shouted, "Contact!" Multiple heat signatures on the outer ring.
The display lit up with red dots.
The fleet surged toward them, only to find empty space. The signatures vanished as soon as they approached. The Admiral's jaw tightened. They're not attacking us. They're dismantling us. Every minute, the Council's ability to keep their ships supplied dropped further. Without fuel, the fleet's massive engines were useless. Without ammunition, their weapons meant nothing. It was only when a small patrol ship stumbled upon a drifting container that they understood the scale of the trap. Inside were hundreds of tiny drones, each designed to attach to fuel lines and detonate remotely. The drones were still warm from use. One captain whispered the obvious truth. "They've been here the whole time." By the end of the second day, the net was no longer a trap. It was a graveyard of crippled ships. Their reactors powered down to conserve what little fuel remained. The humans never appeared in force, never gave the Council a target to fight. They simply vanished into the void after stripping Caltrix of its lifeblood. The blow to morale was worse than any battlefield loss. Soldiers who had come expecting glory returned in silence, their ships limping home. Some never made it, drifting in the black until rescue could arrive. In the council chamber, the debate was bitter. Some demanded retaliation. Others began to wonder if a war could even be one. One voice, the insect-like counselor who had warned them from the start, said only one thing: "You do not understand. This is not their attack. This is only their preparation." Far from Caltrix, in the cold reaches of unmarked space, the human fleet reformed. The captain of the dreadnought reviewed the after-action reports. Every strike had been exact. Every loss on the Council's side had been intentional. When an officer asked why they had spared the fleet instead of destroying it, the captain gave a single answer: "They will carry the story home." Fear spreads faster than fire. The countdown continued to tick lower. The Council's capital world was built from silver towers and endless light. But in the deep vaults below its surface, there were rooms where no light reached. In one of those rooms, the oldest members of the Council gathered around a table. Of black glass, the failures at Varan 6 and Caltrix had shaken them badly. Fleets were nervous. Border systems whispered of evacuation. Now, they faced a truth they had kept hidden for decades. A heavy door slid open, and an old historian entered, carrying a thin metal case. His voice was low when he spoke. "The records you asked for are sealed by the Founder's order. Only you have clearance to see them." The insect-like counselor leaned forward. "Show them." The case clicked open. Inside were data tablets, their surfaces scratched from age. When activated, they displayed images not of war, but of humanity's early expansion. The recordings showed human ships landing on distant worlds, building colonies, making alliances with smaller species. Their technology was advancing quickly, too quickly for some in the Council to feel safe. One of the younger leaders frowned. They were explorers. "This does not explain what we face now." The historian's tone turned sharp. "You do not know what happened next." The next set of files showed secret meetings, the Council in shadow, discussing containment. They feared that if humanity spread too far, they would dominate the galaxy. The decision was made: slow them down, limit their reach. Economic restrictions were imposed. Trade routes were cut. Colonies were denied recognition, making them easy targets for raids by unaffiliated forces, pirates that were quietly backed by certain Council factions. The final set of records showed something worse. A meeting between high-ranking Council members and a rogue human governor. The deal was clear. In exchange for power and wealth, the governor would sabotage humanity's unity from within. He succeeded for a time. The Council's younger members stared in disbelief. "We did this." The insect-like counselor's voice was quiet. "You did. I warned against it." The historian closed the files. The humans knew. Not it. First, but little by little, they uncovered the truth. They stopped speaking in your chambers. They pulled their ambassadors, and then they went silent. Another leader whispered, 12 years of silence. "We thought they were sulking. They were preparing." The insect-like counselor's eyes gleamed. "They warned you in their own way, but you mistook patience for submission. Now they answer not with words, but with fire." Above the capital in orbit, the Council's fleets were still forming defensive lines. But whispers of the truth had already begun to leak among military officers. Some were furious at the deception. Others feared the humans' vengeance was now unstoppable in the outer sectors. Far from the Council's core, the human fleet was gathering again. Inside the Dreadnought's war room, the captain reviewed old images of the Council's betrayals. He had been a young officer when the restrictions began. He had fought in secret battles the galaxy never heard about. He remembered every insult, every blockade, every life lost because the Council feared humanity's growth. Now, he stood with the power to answer all of it. One of his lieutenants spoke. "The next target, sir?" The captain tapped the display. The hologram shifted to show the Council's capital itself, the glittering heart of their rule. Phase 3, he said. We take their voice. The countdown reached its final stages, and somewhere in the shadows of the capital, the insect-like counselor looked out across the shining city, knowing that soon the light would go out. The capital world of the galactic. Council shone like a jewel in the dark. Its silver towers pierced the clouds. Its orbital rings glittered with traffic. Billions lived here. Leaving the heart of the galaxy was untouchable. They were wrong. It began in the early hours, before sunrise, when the planet's nightlights still glowed across continents, high above the atmosphere, far beyond the reach of the defense grid. The stars shifted. From the surface, it looked like nothing more than a change in the night sky until the shapes began to move. Massive shadows, darker than space itself, sliding into position. They made no sound, sent no signal, but their sheer size blocked out entire constellations. On the roof of the council chamber, an aide stared upward and felt his throat tighten. He had seen warships before, but these were different, sleek, sharp-edged, built for war in silence. Each one bore no markings, only matte black holes that seemed to swallow the light dot in orbit. The Council's defense fleet scrambled. Dozens of ships powered up their weapons, locking targets on the intruders. But before they could fire, every console on every defense ship went dead. Engines stopped. Shields collapsed. The crews shouted into deadcoms, but their voices went nowhere. In the control center, deep beneath the council chamber, alarms blared. Generals demanded status reports, but technicians could only give the same answer over and over. Systems offline. Entire network compromised. And then, the lights went out. The entire planet, every home, every tower, every street, went dark in a single moment. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of billions of people realizing something was very wrong. In the darkness, emergency lights flickered in the council chamber. The insect-like counselor stood perfectly, still, her voice cold. They have taken our eyes. Now they will take our voice. High above, the lead human dreadnought hung directly over the capital like a blade poised to fall. On its bridge, the captain watched as the blackout spread across the planet. Reports came in from his officers, orbital grids disabled, planetary. Defenses neutralized, military networks erased. A communications officer looked up, sir. No resistance left. They're completely blind. The captain nodded once. Open channel. On the surface, every still working screen, every emergency holla, every device capable of projecting sound or image lit up at the same time. The face that appeared was human, calm, controlled. The voice was deep and even. This is not conquest, the human commander said. This is balance. Billions watched in silence. The commander continued. You silenced our voice for decades. You believed our patience meant submission. You were wrong. Today you learn the cost of your fear. The image vanished. The blackout remained. For the next hour, the human fleet stayed in position, unmoving, untouchable. No bombs fell, no weapons fired. But the message was clear. They could take the capital at any moment, and they had chosen not to. In the council, chamber leaders argued in whispers. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others swore humanity would pay for this humiliation. But none could ignore the truth. If the humans had wanted the capital destroyed, it would already be burning. When the human fleet finally departed, the lights of the capital slowly returned. People flooded the streets, looking up at the sky where the warships had been. The constellations were back, but the memory of the shadows remained, far from the capital. In the dark of uncharted space, the human fleet regrouped. The captain looked at the countdown. Only one phase remained. The silence of 12 years was almost over. The fire and steel were about to begin. The countdown reached 0. In the command room of the human dreadnought, no one spoke. The bridge was lit only by the pale glow of tactical screens. Across the fleet, thousands of officers sat ready, watching the same numbers disappear. The final digit vanished. A single tone echoed through the ships. The captain gave the order in a voice as calm as stone. Begin. In 1,000 different places across council space, the sky changed. It began at border stations, sudden flashes of light as orbital guns melted under precision strikes. Then the core military shipyards, their dry docks collapsing as explosions tore through them. Communications arrays blinked out one by one, severing the council's fleets from each other. The humans did not strike randomly. Every target was chosen with surgical care. Fuel depots, command centers, munitions factories, all gone in minutes in the council capital. The alarm sirens began to wail again. Leaders ran to their secure chambers, demanding reports. The answers were chaos. Fleets scattered, planets undefended, systems collapsing. The council's vast war machine, built over centuries, was being torn apart in hours. A general shouted over the comms, "We must counterattack." But counterattack with what? The fleets at Caltrix were still crippled. The Varan 6 defenses were gone. And now, even the capital's proud warships were trapped in dock, powerless under the invisible net of human interference. On the outer rim of the galaxy, Council battleship tried to make a stand. It never fired a shot. Human ships appeared without warning, weapons blazing, and when the smoke cleared, only wreckage drifted where the defenders had been. The humans didn't linger to claim territory. They moved like shadows, hitting and vanishing, each blow stripping away another piece of the Council's strength. Inside the dreadnought, the captain watched the progress on the holomap. Entire sectors changed from Council blue to empty black. His second-in-command approached. "Sir, resistance is collapsing. Soon there will be nothing left to fight us." The captain didn't look up from the map. "Then we stop before there is nothing left at all." It was not conquest. The captain had no interest in ruling the Council's worlds. This was justice, the kind that left no doubt. Hours later, the human fleet appeared once more above the Council capital. This time, there was no blackout, no hidden threat. The warships hung in the sky, lit by the pale sun. A message was broadcast to every world. The human commander's face filled the screens again. His voice was steady. "Your fleets are gone. Your weapons are gone. Your strength has been broken. Not to destroy you, but to remind you, power is not yours alone to hold. For decades, you acted in fear. Now, you will act in respect." Silence followed. Across the galaxy, billions listened. The commanders' eyes were cold as steel. "We return to the dark now. But if you ever push again, the silence will not last as long." The transmission ended. Without firing another shot, the human fleet turned and vanished into the black dot in the council chamber. The leaders sat in stunned quiet. They had been stripped of their war machine, but not their lives. So the insect-like counselor finally broke. "The silence. They have given us a choice. We would be wise to take it." In the weeks that followed, the council rebuilt what it could. But no one forgot the shadow fleets, the invisible drones, the fire that had struck from nowhere. Some called it the Day of Silence. Others called it the Balance War. But those who had seen it up close knew the truth. It was not war. A warning written in fire and steel, far away. In a patch of uncharted space where no one dared to go, the human fleet rested in the dark. Engines cold, lights off, silent once more waiting, because humanity knew the galaxy had a long memory, but not long enough.